The Supreme Court of the United States has ruled that the Trump administration may, for now, revoke the temporary legal status granted to hundreds of thousands of migrants from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. This decision has stirred a storm of legal and moral debate across the nation. The ruling affects approximately 532,000 individuals who have lived and worked legally in the United States under a humanitarian program designed to provide refuge from the crises in their home countries. The decision, which came down without a signed opinion or detailed explanation, a standard practice for emergency orders, drew a sharp dissent from two liberal justices, Ketanji Brown Jackson and Sonia Sotomayor. Justice Jackson, in particular, lambasted the majority for what she called a gross miscalculation of the balance of harm. She wrote that the court had, plainly botched, its assessment and warned of the devastating consequences that would follow from upending the lives of over 500,000 migrants while the legality of their removal is still being litigated. The migrants, many of whom have lived in the U.S. for years, were granted a temporary protected status, commonly known as TPS, due to the unsafe conditions in their countries. The program granted them the right to work legally and remain in the country without fear of deportation. The Trump administration has moved to terminate this status, arguing that continued presence of these individuals is contrary to national interest and that the program no longer serves its intended purpose. The administration's decision marks yet another step in former President Donald Trump's broader crackdown on immigration. His administration has consistently pushed for policies that would tighten border security, increase deportations, and roll back existing protections for migrants already living in the United States. The temporary status program, which was intended as a short-term humanitarian relief, became a target of that crackdown. In the eyes of the Trump administration, the program failed to deter illegal migration and has instead encouraged more people to come to the U.S. in hopes of similar protections. By terminating the program early, the administration claims it is restoring the rule of law and ensuring that immigration policies align with national interests. They have also argued that courts should not interfere in what they regard as an executive policy decision. Lawyers representing the migrants have a starkly different view. They argue that the administration's abrupt termination of TPS will throw hundreds of thousands of lives into chaos and subject lawful residents to deportation. They say this move represents the largest mass removal of legal status in modern American history. Many of these individuals have put down roots, started families, contributed to the economy, and worked in essential sectors like healthcare, construction, and manufacturing. Labor unions and local communities have stepped in to defend the migrants, highlighting their essential role in the American workforce. One automotive parts manufacturer, for instance, reported that nearly 20% of its employees are beneficiaries of the TPS program. Union leaders argue that ending the program would not only disrupt lives but also devastate industries already struggling with labor shortages. Local governments have joined the legal fight, warning that a sudden revocation of legal status could cause severe economic and societal harm. Cities and counties from across the country submitted briefs to the court, outlining the negative impact on public health systems, local economies, and community stability if these migrants were forced to leave. A district court in Massachusetts had previously sided with the migrants, issuing a temporary block on the administration's move. Judge Indira Talwani ruled that the early termination of TPS was legally flawed and based on a misunderstanding of immigration law. Specifically, she noted that the administration erroneously believed it needed to cancel TPS early in order to expedite deportations, a conclusion she found legally unsupported. Judge Talwani also stressed the need for individualized assessments rather than a blanket termination. She concluded that such mass cancellations require a case-by-case review, in line with due process protections. Her decision was upheld by a panel from the First U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in Boston. All three judges on that panel were appointed by Democratic presidents and affirmed the lower court's reasoning. Despite these rulings, the Justice Department pushed forward with an appeal to the Supreme Court. In its filing, the department argued that the judiciary was overstepping its bounds by interfering with policies that had been clearly articulated by the administration and, in their view, endorsed by voters in the previous election. The government insisted that the ability to craft and implement immigration policy lies with the executive branch. The Supreme Court's decision to allow the revocation to proceed, even temporarily, signals a major turning point in the ongoing legal battle. While the final outcome has yet to be determined, the ruling immediately places hundreds of thousands of migrants in legal limbo. Their work permits and deportation protections are now at risk, even as the broader litigation continues. This decision has alarmed immigrant rights advocates, legal scholars, and humanitarian organizations. They say that the rollback of TPS not only endangers the lives of those directly affected but also undermines the credibility of the United States as a haven for those fleeing violence, instability, and crisis. Critics argue that stripping away protections from people who followed the law and contributed to society sends a chilling message about the nation's stance on compassion and fairness. The Biden administration had hoped to maintain the program, at least temporarily, to discourage new waves of illegal migration from these nations. But now, with the Supreme Court's order in place, that effort has been disrupted. The administration finds itself caught between upholding legal protections for vulnerable groups and contending with court decisions that limit its ability to enforce those protections. Meanwhile, affected migrants now face an uncertain future. Many have lived in the U.S. for over a decade, bought homes, started families, and contributed significantly to the economy. Some have U.S.-born children, and others have never returned to their country of origin since they arrived. For them, the court's decision is more than a legal setback, it's a profound disruption of life as they know it. Advocacy groups are already mobilizing to respond. Legal aid organizations are preparing to file new challenges, explore individual protections, and advise affected individuals on their rights. They are also calling on Congress to take legislative action to protect those at risk, arguing that the legal patchwork of temporary protections is no substitute for permanent immigration reform. The coming months will be critical. As lower courts continue to evaluate the legality of the administration's actions, the fate of more than 500,000 people hangs in the balance. This is more than a dispute over administrative authority, it is a defining moment in America's immigration narrative. Supporters of the TPS recipients point out that these individuals are not just numbers in a legal battle. They are neighbors, co-workers, caregivers, and small business owners. Many of them stepped up during the COVID-19 pandemic, working on the front lines when others stayed home. Their contributions to society, they argue, merit protection, not punishment. The broader implications of the court's decision extend beyond immigration. It touches on questions of executive power, judicial oversight, and the balance between national interest and human rights. It also raises fundamental questions about who gets to call America home, and under what conditions. As this legal saga unfolds, it will continue to test the country's commitment to fairness, justice, and the rule of law. The decision to revoke temporary protections for hundreds of thousands of migrants is not just a policy choice, it is a moral crossroads. The nation now watches to see whether compassion, reason, and constitutional principles can prevail over fear and political expedience.